so once we have queried this data, we get this data frame which contains the price, the quantity, the symbol, and whether or not a bid is on the ask side or on the bids side. Hi guys, and welcome to a new video on CCXT and crypto pandas. Today we're going to be working with one of the most interesting datasets in algorithmic trading, and that is the order book. The order book is essential for knowing the real state of an exchange and where a symbol is trading. And so today we're going to be using CCXT and crypto pandas to analyze order book depths and get volume weighted average prices on various symbols to better understand the liquidity inside of an order book. So let's dive into it. So as always, what we're going to do is start by importing our CryptoPandas and CCXT libraries. And today we're going to be using a liquid exchange, in this case a bid, so that we can better see the changes in prices on the bid and ask side as we move away from bid-ask spread in the middle of the order book. Once we have initialized our exchange and pandas exchange objects, we can load our markets and query just the USDT symbols. So in this list, we're going to define our desired depths. Today, we want to look at the volume weighted average price, 1,000 USD down in the order book, 10,000 USD, 100,000 USD, 1 million USD, and 5 million USD down in the order book. Once we have defined our variables, we can fetch our order books using this fetch order books method from the pandas exchange class. And once we have received that data, we can also merge the data from markets so that we get some additional metadata which we will need for our analysis. And so once we have queried this data, we get this data frame which contains the price, the quantity, the symbol inside of the order book, and whether or not a bid is on the ask side or on the bids side. And then so once we have this data, what we can do is define the notional value of a bid. Since we only get the price and the coin amount, we want to know what is the USD value of a bid. So we multiply price by quantity. And then what we want to know is how much value there is on the bid side and ask side as we go down in the order book. So for this reason, we calculate the cumulative notional value of the order book by grouping by each symbol and side and doing the cumulative sum of the notional. For later on, we're also going to need to know what is the total notional value inside of the order book. And for that, we're going to do a group by on the same columns, which is to say symbol, exchange, and side, and do an overall sum. For our data manipulation, we're also going to use this column called shift cumulative notional, where we're simply going to take the cumulative notional value that we calculated previously, and we're going to shift it down by one row. Now we get into some slightly trickier calculations, but nothing too difficult. So let's go through it one line at a time. And so what we're going to do is for each of our desired depths, we are going to see how far down in the order book we need to go to get the specific depth that we desire. So for instance, our desired depth is 1,000 USD. We're going to query the order book for rows where the cumulative notional is less than 1,000 USD on the next row, so that we are certain that we get at least 1,000 USD. And then after this, we are just going to attach our depth column to the data frame and attach it to this list of data frames. And that way, what we're going to do is we're going to get a list of data frames where each data frame has been filtered for the specific depth that we are interested in. And then afterwards, we can do a group by so that we can get the exact volume weighted average price that we desire. And so that is what we do here. We combine all of the data frames into one. We recompute the quantity by dividing the notional by the price. And to get the final volume weighted average price of the order book at a specific depth on each side, what we do is we group by our order book by symbol, exchange, side, and depth, and we get the aggregated sum of total notional, and quantity. And then finally, once we have done all of this, what we can do is calculate the VWAP, which is simply by dividing the notional value by the quantity. And we need to add this filter here where we remove rows where the total notional is larger than the depth, because we don't want to have VWAPs where a VWAP was calculated even though the depth did not exist inside of the order book. So for instance, if we were looking for 10 million US dollars inside of the order book, but there was at most 7 million US dollars, well, this query will make sure that we don't return a VWAP for such large depths. And then in order to be able to visualize the VWAPs, what we're going to do is we're simply going to pivot it by each side. So we put the symbol to symbol, exchange, and depth, and then we set the columns to the side so that we will get one column for asks and one column for bids. Now, the cool thing about pivoting it like this is that it's going to be able to make it easy to calculate the VWAP spread between the ask side and the bid side. Very easy by just subtracting the asks from the bids, and to get the relative spreads so that we will be able to compare all of our coins and depths at the same time. We calculate a relative spread, which is simply given by taking the spread and dividing it by the average of the asks and the bids. And then we get this nice clean data frame which contains our VWAPs, where we get for each depth the specific VWAP on the ask side and on the bid side, as well as the spread between that ask and that bid. And here we can see the relative spread. So we can see that on some less liquid coins that the bid-ask spread can be quite big, such as this ACS USDT, which has a relative spread of 34%. But if we were to look at a more liquid symbol like, say, BTC USDT, what we can see here is that for a depth of 1,000 US dollars, we only have spread between the bid and the ask of 0.04%, which is actually quite liquid for a non very well known exchange. And as we continue down into the order book, what we see is that for a depth 10,000 USD here, for instance, the bid-ask spread is still around 0.4%. Continuing onwards, even at 1 million USD, the bid-ask spread is still at 1.7%. So that goes to show just how liquid BTC is traded on almost any exchange, and it is a cool way of calculating the VWAP spread. So we hope you guys found this tutorial useful. Let us know in the comments below if you have any questions or if something was not clear. If there's also a tutorial that you guys would be interested in having, please drop us a comment or write us an email, and we will try to answer your questions. Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you in a next one.